Welcome to Howz Yer Stool, the show where we pull up a stool and find out if things are really going. Not just the gigs, not just the music, but what's happening when the amps and lights get turned off. Because if you ask a musician how they're doing, you'll get one answer, but if you check their stool, you might get the truth. I'm your host, Dave Randall. Today I'm sitting down with the enigmatic Keith Ford. So let's get a stool sample. Keith Ford, I am so happy to see you here today.
I'm happy to be here.
Thank you for driving out here on a beautiful Sunday afternoon to
gorgeous.
Talk to me about the trials and tribulations of being a musician. And cheers.
Cheers to you. Thank you.
Non-alcoholic to all of you. It's just non-alcoholic. There we go. So Keith, I honestly, I don't know a ton about you.
No.
I know you've been in the music scene around for a while, but we never crossed paths at any of our gigs. I stopped gigging just before the pandemic started.
So there's a reason for why a lot of folks kind of go, I know that guy's name, but they don't really know me. And that is that in 1990, I left and went to Ontario.
Oh, okay.
And I spent most of 20 years there. And so when everybody else was, so I was playing in the 80s and before, and then when 1990 hit, I got offered a job, ended up in Toronto, and then was kind of there except for 3 years that I came back.
Okay.
So I continued doing music there and working, whereas everybody here was still just playing and hanging out and getting to know each other. Mm-hmm. And then I came back about 12, 14 years ago.
Okay.
And just started picking it up again, finding out who was around, what I'm going to do.
Yeah, it was like all of a sudden your name started appearing on the ads and stuff.
Yeah.
And I can say I haven't had the pleasure of coming out to see you live yet. Just back in those days, there was that schedule and stuff, but I promise I'll come out.
Oh, you should. Yeah. And some of the places I play now are real destination spots, like the House of Jazz.
Yeah. That's a great gig.
It's a gorgeous venue. I've been there for 3 years, like twice a month, it's
and people who go there are coming to listen to music.
Oh yeah,
they're not. Yeah, it's not just a bar type of thing.
And what's nice about the House of Jazz is that it each week there'll be a handful of regulars, but each week that I play there, it's a whole new crowd. It's like playing in old Montreal or something where it's just tourists that come. Like, I don't know where these people come from. Mm-hmm. And it's sold out. It's like reservations only every time I play. Mm-hmm. And it's like that most nights on the weekend for all the bands. Mm-hmm. And you never tire, and they never tire of you, and it just feels like you're playing a different place every time you go. So that's
a great feeling. Yeah. When it's fresh, when it feels like and especially that aspect that people are there to hear you.
Yeah.
I always tell this story. One of my favorite, when I was doing the pub thing and that, mostly the pub thing when you notice like who's listening, who's not paying attention at all. There's a scene in a movie. The movie is Inside Llewyn Davis. Okay, it's a Coen Brothers movie. It's about the early folk music era, Greenwich Village in New York, and it stars Oscar Isaac as Llewyn Davis. And anyway, he's just a struggling musician trying to get whatever gigs he can. But the opening scene, he's in a typical Greenwich Village, early 60s, smoky venue, and he's just sitting up there, just a guitar, a stool, and microphone, and the crowd, the audience is dead quiet. They're listening. And they emphasize that by focusing in on a cigarette in an ashtray. And the person who has forgotten about their cigarette, they're so intent on listening that the cigarette's got a huge long ash on it. It's like, such a great scene. It's one of my favorites. Like, oh man, just to play to crowds. So anyway, it's not about me, but that's just one of those things that I can truly appreciate is when you got people who were there to hear you and also let you do your thing.
And I've played to rooms, that were just a chore. I mean, when I was in Ontario at one point, just before I left to come back, I was in a 70s rock tribute band, and I needed money. I looked around to see who was making the most money on the circuit. These guys were. They didn't need a guitar player. It all came together, and we started playing. And I played a lot and made good coin with them. Mm-hmm. But it was a cover band. But we played this is out of London, Ontario, and we played a small town called Petrolia, and that area of Ontario west of London, was the first place they discovered oil in North America. And as you drive through that area, it smells like oil, and you see these small oil derricks still working
really?
in the front of these farms, and so there's like Oil Springs and Petrolia and a few other towns, and we got to this bar we'd never played before, and we set up, and we had the full system, lights and sound and smoke and lasers and massive drum kit and big sound, and the bar was along the back of facing the stage, and there was a door here with a doorman, and there were 2 people at the bar, 2 women, and we were like, is this it? Like, and so they're like, yeah, well, go and do your first set. And so we play the first song, and it's massive and it's huge and it's like a stadium thing, and all you heard at the end of the song was the doorman going,
oh no.
And I was like, and I walked over to him, and at the side of the stage, and I called him over, and I said, can you not clap? I said, that's the saddest sound. And he said, don't worry about it. He said, your second set is going to be crazy. And I was like, how is that possible? And he said, there's a tractor pull happening tonight. And he said, everybody's at the tractor pull, and they'll all be coming on their tractors later. And I was like, he's got to be kidding. Well, he was right. By the time we were into the second set, the women were dancing on the stage. It was just mental, and the whole parking lot was full of John Deeres. It was
outstanding.
Yeah. But I've been in those rooms where, and I actually spoke to somebody today about this, a friend of mine, Rick Keane. I don't know if you know him yet.
Yeah.
And we had a coffee, and Rick and I were talking about how you survive as a musician and what it's necessary. And we got onto the subject of ego, and my take on that is that ego is what gets you through those shows. If you don't have an ego, if you're insecure, those shows will crush you, and some people just end up not going any further because they just don't have that drive, that sense of self, that knowing their worth, that feeling a confidence in themselves, which many people consider to be a bad thing. But as a musician, if you don't have that I'm here, I'm a rock star, and I'm going to show you what I can do, those shows crush you. And I've learned over the years that having that ego is what gets me to go on to the next song and do an even better job, and the next one and do an even better job. And so that's, for me, I think ego, if you don't have it, boy, it's a tough road.
Well, I mean, just to get up there and play a song that you learned requires a certain mental capacity to say, I'm good enough. I'm going to go up and do that. And which is why it stings. I remember playing locally here once, and I was up doing, which is normally a crowd favorite, is Desperado by the Eagles. And I thought I did on guitar, I thought I did a pretty good job. And I looked down, and there's a young woman sitting in front of me, and she starts making slashing motions across her wrist. I'm like, this is like one of the most popular Eagles songs in the world. Why would you do that? And ironically, she is now out playing in pubs and stuff. And I went to see her, and I told her how much she'd improved since I last saw her. I did not try to slash. But yeah, I mean, it's... So yeah, I definitely understand that feeling of...
Yeah.
You need to, what's the expression? Buck up.
Yeah.
Go into it. And many nights turning to the guys in the band going, paid rehearsal, guys. Let's just have fun. Let's just do it. Don't worry that there's not much of an audience.
Even now at the Howz Jazz, I mean, it comes in waves. I mean, sometimes I have the room, and from the first song, I can feel it. And sometimes I have that table, and I have that table, and I haven't won these people over yet, and I got to push my energy out into the room, and I have to try and get that to and fro of energy that creates the night. And then there's other nights that they're large groups. They haven't seen each other in ages. They're only there for themselves because it's like a supper club. Mm-hmm. And so we'll finish playing 4 songs in a row, and there's no applause. And we just look at each other and we just smile because last weekend when we finished the first song, the place went nuts. So it's like, it's not us.
Yes,
it's the room.
No, it's definitely.
And so then that's my challenge. Then is how can I get these people to turn and start becoming interested in us, and usually I have them, but like sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes it's like the last 2 or 3 songs of the night, and you're like, okay, finally won the room over.
When there's enough alcohol been poured.
Exactly, yeah, and they're tired of talking to each other. Like, oh, there's a band.
It reminds me of doing a pub down in Hudson, whose name we won't mention, but playing there one night, and I was asked to start earlier, so there were still people having dinner and stuff. And you've been in that pub down there, and it's tiny, and the stage is just big enough to stand. So I'm up there, and I'm just playing some gentle, basically dinner music. And I finished the set, and I said, okay, I'm going to take a short break. I'll be back and join you folks again shortly. And this woman who was sitting, like, had her back to me, and she goes, I thought that was the radio, which was kind of a compliment, but also not.
Like, you didn't notice I was up there?
Yeah. What you said about ego, though, is something I have thought about and talked about with people, because it's like a double-edged sword. Ego gets you to get out there, but it's also what hurts you. It's so you become kind of fragile. I mean, there are some people who have absolutely no, I don't know what the right word is, but they don't feel the negative side of things. It's just positive. Go. Foolishly sometimes. But that's one of the tough things about being a musician. And I don't know how many non-musicians listen to our conversations here, but I don't know how many people, also just people who go out for an evening, look at the musicians and realize how much work you've put into it, how much you had a bad day, and you got to go out and entertain these people and make them feel good about their evening and their choices. And I think it's really a special thing that is so nuanced in the overall, here I am, I'm going to try and play music you like, I'm going to do the best I can, but also it's like, how do you manage that energy level to keep it going? It's a tough thing.
And it's changed for me over the years. I mean, when I was younger, and there was some nerves involved as a teenager, early 20s, and then at a certain point it just became more comfortable for me to be up there than in the room talking to people. And that's when that happened, and I didn't notice it. It wasn't like an overnight thing. It's just all of a sudden now I'm like, wait a second, I walk on that stage and I feel at home, and I feel comfortable, and I can't wait to relate to these people, whereas before we'd be sitting, at 19 years old going, I'm a little nervous about tonight's show, guys. I
haven't got that lick quite worked out.
But now I walk onto the stage and I just feel like I own it, and I own the room, and it's I don't know, it seemed to have changed at one point, or I just thought that I'm more comfortable up there, and that is something I think that the average patron can't relate to, because for them to think about getting up in front of people and doing what we do, I think for them it's insurmountable, the fear that they have. And so when I tell people, like, I'm more comfortable up there than I am talking to you right now, and they think I'm joking, or I'm like, but it really is the case.
You're in your element. Yeah. You got your guitar on as your protection. And you got a little facade there. But yes, I know what you mean. I mean, I'm not a social person. I don't just go out to bars to be in a bar. These days, I'll only go out if somebody I know is playing or something. But just to go out to a bar and hang out and be like that. So I was always like, give me a guitar. Let me go. Let me get out of here and go do something fun and constructive.
I started young. I mean, we came over from Canada.
Okay, I want to hear that, but I'm going to take you a little bit further back.
Okay.
Let's hear about where you came from. Sorry, everybody, just because we're kind of rushing in here, but so let us know where Keith Ford. Where were you born? And we'll go from there.
I was born in the Liverpool Maternity Hospital in Liverpool, England, which apparently is the same hospital that John Lennon was born in, but I was 20 years later. Yeah, so I was born in Liverpool, very humble beginnings. We didn't have much money, and my father came from a very poor family, and he was in the army and got a trade, met my mom, had a couple of kids, and the Cavern Club at the time used to have a rock and roll night, which my mom wanted to go to.
Okay.
So she would drag my dad to that. And they had a jazz night, which my dad was into. And he would take my mom to the jazz nights. And so, the early years, my mother told me she went to see the Quarrymen, and she remembers Pete Best being the drummer, and all the girls loved Pete Best, and he was the best looking one in the band. And hence the reason he's not in the band anymore. And so, I guess I was brought up. My mom used to love to sing. She always sang around the house. And then my dad realized that Liverpool, the north of England, was, in the late 60s, wasn't doing well. And he wanted to better life for us. So he came over to Montreal.
Okay.
And found a job with Air Canada and rented an apartment in Lachine. And then flew my mother and myself and my brother over.
Okay.
I was 6 years old. My brother was 8. And at the time, you pay baggage tax with your free passes, and at the time it was $8 to fly.
Oh, wow.
So and my grandfather, my mom's father, got all these old wooden tea chests, and packed all of her stuff that she wanted to take with her into that, and shipped that over. And we were able to do that with Air Canada. So everything came over, and we had this little apartment. And I remember when I was 8, so I'd been here for 2 years, and I just felt there was a lot of music in the house all the time, and I just felt that I should have a guitar.
Okay.
At 8 years old, I was like,
just like that.
I need to get a guitar. And
was there an influence while you were growing up in Liverpool, like kids like, oh, we're going to be the next Beatles?
No. I don't remember much of that at all. It wasn't until
young.
Yeah. So like as I became 8 years old and started listening to music and appreciating it more, I suppose. And so there was a fellow that used to deliver the Montreal Star to the building that we lived in,
right?
And because of where we'd come from, like, electric heating didn't exist, and everything I was like I'd been launched into the future. I'd never been in an elevator in a building, and so I used to go and play in the elevator all the time. And when he would come in, I would follow him around and go up to all the floors and help him deliver his papers. And he told me one day that he had a guitar for sale, and I said, well, how much is it? And he said it was $12.
Oh wow!
And yeah, we had no money, and back this is 1969, and my mom had just given birth to my sister, and we had nothing, and he was working and trying to get through life, and I begged and begged and begged and begged, and he said, okay, look, have him bring the guitar over. My dad knew nothing about guitars, I knew nothing about guitars, and he brought it over, and my dad's okay, but you better play this guitar if I buy it, So we bought the guitar. The action on it was just horrible. Nothing I understood at the time, but why is this so hard to play? So I didn't really play it. And so a couple of years went by, and we moved to my sister was now here, and so we needed a bigger house. So we moved to Pierrefonds. And I got to Pierrefonds and started going to school in Pierrefonds. And one of the teachers said she was going to be giving lunchtime guitar lessons with another teacher. And so I said, I'm in. I want this. But I brought the guitar in, and they're like, oh, you can't play that guitar. So they found a deal somewhere where they could get a guitar with a cheap little strap and a pick for $25 or something. And they asked, who wants these guitars? And all of the kids, ordered these guitars. And they started the lunchtime lessons. And I started taking lessons, just learning basic G, C, D, and for a month or two, and that was it. And then I was hooked.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember the learn to play guitar in 7 days ads on the back of comics.
Yeah, I think I've seen that.
I sent away. I put my $1. I got my parents to help me. I put my $1 or whatever it was in an envelope and sent it away. And I got a book with chords and a pick and a few other things. And so I was 10. By the time I was 13, I was playing high school dances and getting paid.
Wow.
So I did John Rennie High School, played there.
Oh, yeah.
and I'm still in contact with the drummer from that band, whose name's Arnie Oliver. He's out in PEI now.
Okay, I know that name.
Oh, you would. Arnie was in Lyrock.
Okay,
and, Randy Bowen, all those guys.
Oh, yeah, I know Randy,
and, we were all that crew, that age group.
Okay.
And so we all knew each other back then. And I really, really, really wanted to play music, but my parents were dead set against it. And so
they wanted you to
get
your education,
get a job, get an education, get a job, have a different way of life. And so they kept pushing back. So in that 13 to 18 period, I saw all my buddies, Arnie and all these people, Randy, they started playing in these bands, and I would go and see them in the clubs, and I was like, I really want to play in a band. And I was getting really frustrated because I'd been forced to go to CJEP, and then I dropped out of CJEP, and then I was working, and I'm thinking, well, what am I doing? This is crazy. And I met a guy named Richard Kurek, who was older than me, and he had been in a band called Firefly, and one of the early bass players in that band was Sash Jordan.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And so I met Richard, and we hit it off, and he became like my musical mentor. And he lived in NDG, and he had a studio in the basement. And at one point I needed a place to live, and so he threw a mattress down behind the Hammond organ, and for $25 a month I lived on that mattress behind the Hammond organ, and we would record every day. And that was my rock school. Like, I did that for almost 2 years with him.
Yeah.
And every day listened to my voice.
That's
every day
intense,
improved it. And every day worked on songwriting and guitar technique. And I'd lay a solo down on it because we were writing original music, and we had other players coming in from other bands. And I'd write a solo, and create this thing. And then he'd go, oh, that's amazing. He goes, now I want you to go in and double it up with a harmony part. And I'd be like, what? I'd never done that before. So it was really an amazing challenge for me to be with him. And within a few years, I was at a point where I could go out and really do something, and so I started playing, and I was playing in a bunch of bands around Montreal, and I was playing with a band called Aiken Spanner, and we were writing mostly original stuff, but we did covers too, and we were doing Station 10 and all that, and we were winning radio contests and recording stuff, and then I started a band. Then I played with Angel Forrest in Angel and the Bad Boys, and then I was in a band called the Whoopie Cats, and then we used to tour out into Ontario, and that's when Sean came in, and Sean Donnelly, and I was playing with Sean and a few other really good players, and that was a fantastic band. We were just a great rock band, playing the circuit downtown, up north, everywhere. And then after that, I actually got fired from the Whoopie Cats when we were on the road, and because the bass player said it's either me or him, and they had two guitar players, and they couldn't lose the bass player. So like, wow, sorry, Keith, you got to go. And I was like, okay, sure. And so I phoned. I think where were we? We were in Saint Georges de Beauce, on the Maine border, and I phoned our booking agent. And I said, hey, I just got fired, and he's like, what? And I said, yeah, well, are there any other bands looking for a guitar player? And he said, well, I know this band that seems to be creating a bit of a stir. He goes, I'll call them. And he called them, and he says, I got you now. He called me back at the hotel, and he said, I've got you an audition with them when you get back. And I said, okay, great. So, because this was a 2-week stint in St. George. So I finished that out and came back to Montreal, went and auditioned, and it was a band called The Cast. And they had a #1 song on Shom FM, the top 10 at 10 for 3 weeks. It was #1. AC/DC's Thunderstruck was #2, and finally knocked us out of the one position. But it was purely based on people calling in. And they had a big fan base. And so I started playing with them, and we were opening up for Gowan at the Spectrum and playing all the A rooms and, the Dagobah in Quebec and, up north, Bourbon Street. And but at this point, I'd been kind of playing and on the road for about 3 years, and I was feeling a little burnt out. And so when I left that band, I took a job, just any job, just to pay the bills. And then they offered me a position to open up a distribution center in Toronto for them. And so I went, sure, why not? I need a change. And I ended up in Toronto, and that's when I left. That was like 91.
Okay.
And that's when everybody kind of went, where'd Keith go? You know, and that's why there's that big gap. Everybody goes, I remember the guy's name. Where have you been? You know. And so I ended up in Toronto, and I was working there, and then I started playing in a weekly gig at a pub. You know, just playing covers with some fellas and some folks, and then if I ended up from Toronto, I went to London, Ontario. The company I was working for got bought out, and I ended up in London, and I was dating someone, so I went down there into London. And then I joined a Celtic band and toured for a bit with them, a band called Rant Maggie Rant, recorded a CD just to play something different.
Yeah.
And then that ended for me, and then I started playing with that 70s tribute band, and then made my way back to Montreal very quickly after that. Mm-hmm. And then when I got back, I wasn't playing at all. It was no, I didn't know the lay of the land. I didn't have any contacts anymore. I just kind of like, what do I do? How do I get into this? Is anything happening? Well, a lot of the clubs aren't here anymore. A lot of venues had closed.
Yes.
And then I got offered through. I was dating someone who lived in Saint Lazare. I knew everybody in Hudson, and I got offered a weekly gig at the Cozy Cafe.
Okay, yeah.
And so I used to play there every Saturday night, and Eric played Fridays, and then COVID happened, and all the gigs kind of dried up. That was it. And I was like, oh, great. I'm just starting to get back into this. And now we don't have venues anymore.
Yeah, that would devastated the
it was terrible.
Scene.
It was a very strange position to be in, not knowing if we were going to come out of it or not. And then, okay, well, now what do you do? You know, you can't do what you do. And then that first summer after the first wave of COVID, we were allowed to play outdoors. And a fellow that owns Studio 77 in Point Claire Village had come to see me play at the Cozy, and he said to me, why don't you come and play at the studio outside? And I was like, well, do you have music there? And he said, no. And I said, okay. And so one afternoon I went down there and set my guitar up and, you know, and a microphone, and there was like maybe 7 people there, and I played for a bit and got some tips, and he goes, well, you want to do it next week? I went, yeah, sure. Anyway, that turned into the most lucrative gig I've ever done. It started off with just a few people noticing that I was there, and people were starved for some place to go and be with other people and hear music.
Right.
And they would close off the parking lot, and people would bring their own chairs, and they would just sit in the parking lot, and every week they would just stuff tips into this little cup that I had that eventually fell apart. It was a red Solo cup, and it got me through financially. They were the most generous folks. And then I met another player, Glenn Miller, who plays percussion, and he and I started playing together, and then we built what we have now in Ford Miller. Yeah. And so I stopped playing at David's, and David continued on and made a real good series out of it. And he has tons of music there now. But that started out as hey, you want to have a few beers? And, but it's so there was a gap there where I didn't, everyone else was playing and everyone else was doing things and recording, and Jeff Smallwood was just, he was getting all the gigs. He was getting all the TV shows. He was getting everything. It was like he was, but he earned it. He warrants it. So.
Yeah, he certainly does stay pretty busy. I was chatting with him the other day. I was saying, I haven't seen you much lately, but I said the first time I saw you was 78, maybe 79, John Abbott Beer Bash. You were playing with your band, but I was busy chasing a girl, so I wasn't really paying too much attention. But for some reason, somebody told me that's Jeff Smallwood. I'm like, I just remembered his name, and then roll ahead a couple of decades, and he's like a professional out there. And then I see him doing a bit on the that TV show, the Just for Laughs gags. He's like always the rock guitar player.
No,
that's pretty funny.
He did really well for himself, and then of course his time spent with Rock Voisin, and then now Céline Dion. So and he's heading back soon to France to start rehearsals for her run of shows in Paris, and that now I think has been extended into the spring. So,
yeah, being a professional musician is something I wasn't really conscious of when I started out. It was like you got to be in a band, band's got to be good, you got to get lots of gigs and whatever. But I remember when the David Letterman show came on, and he had the Paul Schaefer, the late night band. And after, like, I was gigging, and I was like going, oh, that looks like just such a treat. You don't have to load in or load out. You get home, you record in the afternoon, you're home for dinner. It's a daily gig. What a perfect scenario. And that's when I regretted not studying music in school, because I also knew, you need to be able to read music and, read composition and so on.
But to play at that level,
But, it was kind of a different take for me when you can be a professional musician. Like, I always knew there were studio musicians, but I didn't know anybody who was in a studio or recorded in a studio. But it was just a different path. See, one thing I've noticed about talking with you and with Randy and Sean, and you guys all there's a similar aspect to your stories where you learned how to play an instrument, you learned how to play, and you got out there right away and played guitar. Well, I learned to play guitar in about grade 10 high school, so 77, I guess. And it just seemed like I kept working on it. And I had a bunch of friends who also play guitar. We'd get together Friday, Saturday nights and jam stuff out. But the band thing didn't happen for me until into the 80s. Okay. And at that time, my sense was, you had to be a cover band. Like, writing originals, like when you talk about how you were working on originals, even way back then, it's like, I wish I'd had that influence, because that's where I'm at now. I don't want to be out in a bar playing covers. I've done it, and that's why I'm here. I can make my own music on my own time, and I never release it, so nobody can criticize it. But I'm very impressed, and I'm impressed too when I talk to young people in bands. There's a few of them out there who are working hard and working on their original music, and I keep saying that's the only way to go.
Well, for me, COVID was a two-sided coin. I lost all the shows and the gigs and the income, and all of that momentum disappeared. But I found myself in my kitchen in the morning with a coffee and just an acoustic guitar. Whereas prior to that, when I would write, I'd be in a studio such as this with my keyboard there and drums and this and loops, and I was kind of painting with sound and creating the whole thing. And all of a sudden, I was just playing my guitar again, which I hadn't really done, just playing an acoustic guitar sitting around. And it allowed me, having all of that time, the way I look at writing songs is that the songs are there already. They're in a place somewhere, and they're whipping around in this universe, this ether world. And you have to put yourself in a state of mind where you can access that. However you do it, everyone's different. And then your playing ability, your singing ability, your life, everything then colors that song and you are the conduit which the song comes out. But now it's changed because it's you who got the song. And if it was been somebody down the road, it would have been slightly different, but it would have been that song. And so COVID allowed me to find that place, because I find that when I'm working, and I was working full time prior to COVID, I can't access it. I can't write, and everything I try to write sounds forced, and there's like walls around this place in my head, and all of a sudden the walls disappeared, and in that kitchen, I just started writing, and I wrote some of the rawest, most close to the bone, close to the heart music I've ever written in my life. And I finally felt that I had found who I was in my songs. And it was only because I had the time.
Yes.
And so many of those songs ended up on the recordings that I did in Nashville a few years later.
Okay.
And so I met some folks who talked about my music to someone else, and they came along, and someone wanted to finance it, and and all of a sudden, because I was at a point prior to COVID where I wasn't even sure if I was going to continue this game.
Mm-hmm.
And I was driving shuttle for a Kia dealership, and I was like, man, this is a retired guy's job. I can do this forever, and just not worry about gigs anymore, and that's where my frame of mind was. And then when all of these songs poured out of me, I was like, oh, what do I do with this? This is stuff that I really liked. And then other people heard it, and then they're like, well, we want to pay you, give you the money and take you to Nashville. And I was like,
wow.
And I had to take a breath and go, do I really want to get back on this train, because it meant a lot of work and a lot of heartache possibly, and it's been both. I mean, I went down and recorded with some of the top session players in Nashville, and
wow,
the sessions were incredible, and the music was great, and the songs finally found the right treatment. And I came back, and my management for a year and a half, I'd signed a management deal, and my management had did nothing. I was getting asked to. They were trying to place the songs down in Nashville in movies and TVs, and I was getting asked to write. Flew down and met with the head of publishing for Universal Music, and he loved my stuff, loved me, and he started asking me to write songs with certain words in it. It's like, can you ask Keith? They contact my manager, ask Keith to write a song with the word sunshine in it. There's a movie coming up. I want to play. Try and submit a song for it. So I was doing this, but nothing was catching. And after a year and a half, my record hadn't come out either. And I was like, okay, what's going on? Mm-hmm. And when I met with them, they said they never really had any intention of releasing my record. And I said, well, why did I sign this 5-year management deal with you, where you get 20% of everything and I'm like, wait a second. And so I said, okay, then I said, I've held up my end of the bargain and you haven't held up yours. I want out of this management deal. And they refused. They said, as a matter of fact, they said, well, if you want out, the original deal was for a small percentage of the publishing for 3 songs. That's what got me this deal. I gave that away. And they said, well, now we want, and I only recorded 7 in Nashville, and they said, now we want the same percentage of publishing for 9 of your songs. And I was like, no. Why would I do that? I'm getting out of this contract. I'm not going to give you money to, and so then it turned into a battle. And it cost me thousands of dollars in lawyer fees. But in the end, I owned all my masters and got all my songs back, and they own nothing of mine. And so that's when I took a breather. Mm-hmm. So now we're like 3 years in since the recordings. Nothing's come out, and I was like, what do I do? I need money now to mix and master the finalized versions of these songs. All the tracks were there. And so I found a young fella. I started working at the Dollard Steve's music studio.
Right, yeah.
And we hired this young guy who had just graduated from Recording Arts Canada at the top of his class, and he was begging me for a chance to do one of the songs. And I was like, no, I have other people asking me, and I'm looking at a guy over here, and and finally he was just like, please, just give me one. So I sent him the tracks for one of the songs, and he, like within a day, came into work and plugged in the USB and went, listen to this, and it was amazing. He was knocked it out of the park. And I said, okay. I said, well, do you want to do another one? And he's like, yeah. And I said, look, I don't have money to pay you. If I get paid from this, if I make money off this, I will pay you. I said, you willing to work that way? And he said, yeah. So he did 3 songs real fast, boom, boom, boom. And I released those end of last year. And, but the other 4, because it's not something that he's getting paid for, and he's busy as a musician, and he's in a couple other acts, and he writes and does work, and he's kind of like pushed it off to the side a little bit. So now I'm like waiting for these other 4 to be done, and now I'm like, oh, maybe I need to do a GoFundMe or something just so I can say, okay, here's your money,
Yeah.
But the whole writing thing for me, that's when it opened up in COVID for me. I just now I'm still writing, and everything is in the same kind of vein, and it's all me.
Yeah.
It's me.
Okay.
But I mean, I'm not young anymore, and it's like, do I, because at one point they wanted me to move to Nashville and live with other musicians, and I'm like, dude, I'm in my 60s. I'm not 20 anymore. I don't want to do that.
Oh, I think there's a new wave of retirement rock coming up. It's all guys like us who grew up in the 60s and 70s, and it's like, now's our time. Mm-hmm. But yes, I agree. Writing, and for me, not that I've never written with other people, but writing here alone is a very satisfying thing, whatever comes of it.
Yeah.
A lot of times I'll start something and go, no, this is terrible. Yeah. This is just so corny. I don't even want to hear it now. But nevertheless, just the effort of going through it. Yeah. And I had to go through a transition. So I think it was through COVID as well, as when or just before, I only ever worked with analog gear. And I thought, I really should get into digital production. And
it's a game changer.
So I was so Pro Tools resistant. It's like, oh no, I don't want to work on a computer. So I was up until a while ago using it's not tape, but it would record to a hard disk on a little platform over here. But it was all very, very old fashioned. And so I learned the tricks of the trade with digital. It makes things easier to record. It's just there's just a lot of help there. And it's, but I still record, and I've only learned this in retrospect, looking at documentaries. A band I've paid little attention to when I was growing up, aside from their hits, but I didn't really care, was the Rolling Stones. And in like the last 10, 15 years, I've just fallen in love with the Rolling Stones, everything that they did and where they came from. I didn't like the bad boy image that they gave off during their days. Sure. But when I look back at it as a body of work that they did, and then I watch these documentaries about how they recorded, and this is when bands recorded live in the same room together, and they'd get the rough tracks down and maybe do some overdubs, but they might finish a song in a night. And I like that feeling. I like that vibe, which is why this setup's here. Whenever I can get musicians let's just come in, hit record, and do whatever we want to do. Turn the freaky lights on and have a good time.
My Nashville sessions were, and this is pure magic that happens only in Nashville. I'm telling you. I wrote the songs. I think I had 8 that I'd chosen that I was taking down there. And I did acoustic guitar and vocal demos. That's it for each of the songs. And we sent those to a fellow named Steve Nathan, a keyboard player, piano player down in Nashville. And he wrote out the Nashville charts, the 1-4-5 charts.
Okay.
And so with the lyrics, he did the charts for everything. And I drove down with my manager, and then the day we went into the studio, we had all musicians assembled, and it's 2 3-hour sessions with a break for lunch, and it's all union.
Okay, so you didn't book these musicians; they sort of came with the studio.
No, so what my manager had an apartment down there, so he knew he'd already done this before, and so he spoke to Steve and said, "Look, Keith wants someone who plays mandolin and fiddle, and he wants an acoustic guitar player, he wants an electric guitar player, and yourself on keys, and we need a good bass player and a good drummer. How about this guy, are they available?" And I'm telling you, it was like the top. And we got there that day, and I had an acoustic guitar with me in the control room, and they're all standing there, sitting there with their 1-4-5 charts, never heard the song before in their lives, and I played the intro, played a bit of the first verse, skipped to the chorus, and said, in the end, I kind of want it to, come in slow denouement as it goes out. And they're all like, okay, cool. Yeah. And they went in, and they're all live in the main room. Some sitting over in little booths, but everyone's in the main room, and I'm in the control room with a microphone like this, and I hear. In the cans and on my head, I hear the drummer counted in, and we did the first song live off the floor that way. And as it faded in my ears, I thought that I dreamt it. I was like, what just happened?
Yeah.
these guys had never heard the song before except for that little thing, and they captured everything I wanted out of what they heard for that 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And they played it. And I was just grinning ear to ear, and everybody's just going, "Wow, that was really cool."
Yeah.
You know? And then, you know, Wanda Vicks, who's the who plays fiddle and banjo and mandolin on my track. She's in the Opry band. She's one of the musicians in the Opry band, and she came in and she was like, you know, in her southern accent, she goes, "Oh, hey Keith, what do y'all hear on this one? You want a fiddle solo?" Or and then there was Dan Dugmore, who's in his 70s, and he's playing steel. And I said, "Well, why don't you and Dan kind of trade off on this one?" And then they'd go in, and while they were taking all of 10 minutes to record a solo, somebody would go make a sandwich or a coffee and come back, and then we'd come back in the room, and we did that 7 times that day.
Wow.
And recorded everything in 6 hours. And we didn't get to the 8th song. We ran out of time. But that magic is unbelievable. Because when you listen to the tracks, you'd think that this band had been rehearsing together or played on the road for 6 months or something, you know? It was... Honestly, I've never felt anything like it before in my life. These are the best of the best. And then when I started researching who I actually had in the room with me, you know, and then I was like, oh my goodness, like, wow. You know, each one of them's got a discography of about 200 or 300 albums, you know.
And then you're starting to feel self-conscious about your own performance.
Yeah, but one of the nice things that happened down there was that because they're unionized and they just show up when they're asked to, and they play whatever is put in front of them, and they'll do their best. But, you know, obviously, if they're not into it, it's hard. And they were so thankful that I had brought them something that it wasn't that new country pickup truck, 22-year-old, you know, thing. It was my stuff is more like Americana, old school, soulful. And they said, you know, thanks for leaving your cowboy hat at home, and that whole trip for me was kind of a validation, because you don't know if you can play at that level until you play at that level. And the engineer on the track, he used to work for Sony for 25 years, and he said everyone used to refer to him as the song Nazi, because he just refused so much stuff. You know, songs would come to him, and he'd be like, no. And he said, Keith, I just want you to know, he said, you need to keep doing this. He said, this has been one of the most pleasurable sessions I've sat in on a long time. And he said, you are there. You belong here.
Wow.
And that to me was my success. That was my validation. That was like, I didn't care if nothing ever happened with these songs after that.
I hear you.
Because I went, okay, I all that ego that kept me alive all this time, it was right. I do belong.
Yes.
You know, because it doesn't matter how long you've been playing, and you know how much success you have, unless you get to that point where you want to be at. Unless you get there and prove something to yourself, you're always kind of self-doubting inside.
Of course, yeah.
Outside, you're presenting yourself as the guy that needs to be there, but inside, you're like, do I really rate? You know. And this session just proved to me, beyond a shadow of doubt, that all those years of hard work, honing my craft, playing terrible little bars, being on the road, not sleeping, not eating, all of those things have paid off.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. It's formed who you are. And
it took a long time. You know, some people reach that earlier in their life and their career,
if they're lucky. Yeah.
But for me, it took all of that to get me to the point where those songs came out and those performances came out, and that was just. I remember coming out of that for the next few days. It was the Country Music Association. Celebration. So Nashville was nuts.
Packed, yeah. And
my manager was heading back and driving back, and I said, "Look, can I stay over at your place and just absorb some of this for a while? I need to be here, you know." And I spent a few days, and then I flew back, just kind of hanging out.
Did you ever think about moving there?
Yes and no. Like, they wanted me to. They really did want me to base myself out of Nashville because of everything that was going on.
Right,
I was creating a small little buzz, you know.
Yeah.
But the problem with Nashville is that I am one of 100,000 that are just as good as each other that are all doing that.
Kind of like the Hollywood of music.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
They have the songwriters rounds where you go, and each hour there's 4 songwriters on stage, or 5, and each one plays a song and talks about it, then the next one and the next one. And so you end up playing 3 songs in an hour by the time you finish this. Mm-hmm. And then a whole new set go up. And they throw out, everything's tipped down there. There's no one's getting paid.
Right,
and
yes.
so there's a tip bucket there. So while I was there, we managed to get me into one of the writers' rounds. And it's the first time I experienced that. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. I can't believe I'm in Nashville and on a writers' round, you know? And at the end of it, my hour, I went and sat down. I was listening to the next group, and I could see the guys that I'd played with were all over there. They all knew each other. And I didn't expect to get paid. I was this guy from Montreal. Who am I? You know, like, and one of the guys walked up to me and goes, "Hey man, it was some really great songs. I got you cash." I said, "Oh geez, thanks, man." And he handed me my money, and I didn't count. I just took it out of his hand. I shook his hand. Thanks very much. And then I sat down, and my manager goes, "Well, what'd you make?" And I'm like, $14. And that's Nashville.
So I had never heard of this tipping strategy.
Yeah.
I do remember before COVID, I was booking the performers at the Chateau du Lac in Hudson. Mm-hmm. And one guy came in once and said, "Is it okay if I put a tip jar out?" And like, you can put it out.
Yeah.
People here don't really tip.
No.
It doesn't work that way.
No. The only place that has tip culture ingrained in them is Studio 77 in Point Claire Village.
Really?
And it's like they have somebody that will walk around and say, "Here, put money in," and everybody throws cash in, but there's nowhere else. I recently played. I don't play many pub gigs, and I recently did a solo pub gig in Beaconsfield, and it was during the playoffs. And
Okay.
so there was a lot of nonsense and noise going on.
Yes.
And I asked him, "Can I put a tip jar out?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure."
Mm-hmm.
So I put the tip jar out, and at the end of the night, I had $5 in it. You know?
Yeah.
Whereas when I used to play that first summer at Studio 77, there were hundreds of dollars. You know, like it's a different thing. And it's so strange that place just has that. We created that tip culture there, but it's not anywhere else. And there's a lot of places that, like Howz Yer Jazz, there's no way they're going to allow you to put a tip jar.
Yeah. The first time I heard of it was a drummer I've played with a lot named Martin. He goes down to Nashville. I don't know if he's done it recently, but he was going down to Nashville. He has a buddy who's like tours all the time. And so when he goes, sorry, not Nashville, I'm sorry, Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
You don't get paid at the bar. It's whatever you, but people there, that's the culture is to tip the musicians. And so
Nashville's because they do, like the people that are playing down on Broadway in Nashville make money. So they'll start at 10 a.m. and they're playing, and every bar in Nashville has a band, and then they'll play for 3 hours. They'll pass a bucket. They'll run out in the audience and try and get as much as they can out of the audience. They pack up. They move to the next honky-tonk. Another band comes in. They play the next honky-tonk. They pass the bucket. Mm-hmm. So they can make, a few $100s each in a day, but you play possibly 6 to 8 hours, which is huge. That's like playing 3 full-time gigs in a day.
Exactly.
And they do this as often as they can, and so it's a real grind down there, and there's some amazing singers and musicians doing
of course
this.
Yes,
but boy, is it tough if that's the only way you're going to make money is to do that. And that's why I said to my management at the time, I said, I can't see myself doing that. It's not something I grew up with, up here.
Yeah.
And it just seemed like too much of a grind, and so many good players and writers.
Well, that's the other thing. There's you find yourself lost a bit in the crowd in a place like that because, as you said, it's kind of a mecca where musicians want to go.
Yeah. And the top players, like there's some of the players that are playing on my record. Guthrie Trapp, electric guitar player. He's just unbelievable, and he plays with John Oates from Hall & Oates. And whenever Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top is in Nashville and puts a band together, Guthrie's his guitar player. And these are guys that they get all those gigs. You know what I mean? Like there's a clique there, just like there was here for many years in the French circuit. On the TV shows
sure.
that Jeff was part of.
Yep.
There's this clique that they get everything, and they're the go-to guys, you know?
Right.
And so you're always operating below that.
Yeah.
And you're hoping that you're going to get a song picked up by one of the record companies. But when I was in Claude's office in Universal, he told me he had 72 writers on the books writing for him. And so and this is where the record companies own everything now. They own the artist. They'll do a 360 deal with the artist. It means they get a piece of everything the artist does. Hats, shirts, tour, tickets, records, anything. Then that deal will be, they're really hard, these deals now. They're like 90-10 deals. So they're getting 90%, the artist is getting 10. And they are getting 90% of everything the artist gets. So there's no way the artist is going to make money unless it's huge, you know, unless it's it's a big name. They also own the songs that the songwriters are writing.
Mm-hmm.
They own
the songs.
Well, yeah, because they're on the books, they're getting paid to write. And so they're saying, okay, well, you own a certain chunk, but we own 50% of that. And so they get such huge dollars from every artist and every song. And then they own the radio stations. And so then they plug their artists into the radio stations. And so the machine now has become the record company.
Yeah.
And, you know, imagine if one record company has 72 writers writing for them.
Mm-hmm.
In a week, how many songs you might get 4 hits, super hits out of a week. You know what I mean? Like, you know, it's like monkeys on a typewriter. Something's good is gonna come of it. And these guys own the majority of what's happening, you know? And then that one artist or that one writer who's written a song that's done well, you know, and Taylor Swift took it and made it huge, and then another one, Luke Combs, and all of a sudden that writer now is becoming the go-to writer.
Right.
And what they do down there is they write with others. They set up writing meetings. So they book each other. They go, okay, hey, I'm going to come to your place at 2:00 on Sunday, and we're going to write. And they sit down, and you see all these guys on social media afterwards going, oh, you know, me and Davey wrote a banger today. And it's like, I couldn't do that. I couldn't go, you know, I'm setting up a meeting with you, and we're going to write a hit this weekend, you know, but that's what they do. They write and they write and they write and they submit and they try to make it. And it's that tension down there that creates what's happening. But it's tough, man. It's tough because
I can imagine, especially when you hear stories about. I just read an article recently about like pretty much every song in the top 20 at least on the Billboard lists. There's like 4 writers who write all those songs for Taylor Swift, for you know, like Lady Gaga, for whoever, and you wonder, like. So this kind of is a segue I've had with other people we talked about. I was like, so it's kind of a machine, right? And so like, yes, there is a performer, let's say Lady Gaga, and she's you know, giving it her all in this song, but it's all been done behind her.
Oh, yeah.
The music's been formatted and arranged, and in the musicians and though she would probably say that she has some input and control over the recording. But where does the line, now this, I'm not trying to open up, this is a huge topic. Where does the line with AI come in? Because, like, as I said, in the typical case now, as I said, the music's all prepared. An artist comes in and puts there. It's kind of like, you know, when they brand an appliance or something. They're all made in the same factory. They just put a different name on it. So I'm in no way promoting AI, but it's out there, and you know, there's just some music like, oh, this is AI. Like, I don't care. It's not that good a song. If a human had done this, it wouldn't have been that great a song. It's pop music. It's what it is.
What I find with AI, though, there's a couple of things. I'm not an AI fan. I think AI has a place in, let's say, helping you automate your mix.
Yes.
You know, as a tool.
Yeah, very much.
As a creative expression of something, I think it's lacking. And the AI songs that I've heard are sonically and perfect, but they lack soul. And you don't realize it if you don't know that it's AI, what it is that you're experiencing, but you feel that, I think. And then afterwards, when someone says, "Oh no, that was an AI song," you go, okay, then you can recognize what it was you didn't feel comfortable with in that song. And I think that musicians like myself and others who go into a studio with a bunch of other musicians, and you've written the song and you perform the song and you capture that performance in one go, I think that creates something that AI can't do. It captures a soul, it captures an energy, a spark in a moment that it's missing in AI. And I think AI, yeah, there are things that it can do that could help us, for sure. But then again, do we want that? Do we want it to be that easy? The ease of use is sometimes what kills the art, you know, even if you're just using it for your mix.
Yeah.
That ease of use is like, well, wouldn't you have appreciated it more yourself if you'd have actually done the mix yourself?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, is that really, do you really feel wholly, completely comfortable saying, this is what I've produced? You know, like, if you're honest with yourself, you know? So, and I know a lot of people are putting out some AI stuff, you know, they wrote poems and they're like, oh, now I can finally be the musician I always wanted to be. Well, no, you can't. You can't. You're not.
Yeah.
You know, it's not your voice. It's generated based on 1,000 different voices.
Yeah.
You put in the style and that you wanted, and it created this for you, and all the music has been created for you because you said, I want it to sound like this or that or this. Well, that's not you. The words are yours, but the rest of it isn't you. And I really have a problem with it. And there is a pushback, I feel, right now against AI, and I think it's good, because I think we do need to set up some guidelines and draw a line in the sand that says, okay, it should not be competing with what we do here, you know.
Yes, and I don't think, well, certainly AI could never create your style of music, because that's you, and it is very down to earth. There's a realness to your. But for pop music, I don't really care. If, you know, it is.
Yeah.
You know, I listened to a Rick Beato. You must know who he is. I listened to one of his shows a little while ago, and he was talking about how many tracks are involved in a recording these days. He says a lot of these top 40 hits, there's about 200 plus tracks in there. There's obviously not 200, but you know, the re-looping and processing and all the rest of that. And I'm like, that too kind of takes away. And then I read an article on a very common technique in the studio. I can't remember the exact, I think it's quantizing or something, where they align all the beats perfectly on the meter. And I remember in the article, they referenced, they took a Van Halen song and played it.
If you quantize it doesn't feel the same.
It lost it. And so this goes back to me saying that I like the old-fashioned style. It's got blemishes, it's got glitches, but it's real, and you can feel that. You can sense that. You know, no AI is ever going to play a bass line like James Jamerson. You know what I mean? Like, he was all about that human part of it. And so in the sense where there are real musicians putting out real music, I don't think AI is a threat. No. The public in general are kind of naive, and you know, I mean, even like when I was gigging, what used to frustrate me most is people come and say, "Can you play this? Can you play this?" I'm like, "How about you listen to the stuff that I'm prepared to play? Stop telling me." And I refer to them as the iPod generation. It's like, I don't like the song. Click, you know, flick, and sit. And again, going back to where we started with that reference to the Llewyn Davis movie. You got to see that opening scene. It's just like, that's when music was real and people felt it and listened to it. And I don't think that'll ever go away. No,
but you're right. I mean, as far as the pop music and the dance music, it's all so tight and quantized and on the one that AI you know, it's if it's going to make a hit, then it's going to make a hit, and it's already a music business. And so if the record companies are using that to make money, well, great. At least they're not screwing over some poor sod, you know, like they're, you know, it's like, let them go make their money the way they want to make their money. But there's a whole pile of people, and especially in I can speak only really from country music, but there's this underbelly of Americana. What used to be country music has now been shoved over to this thing called Americana.
Yes.
And what we have now is new country, which is pop and rap all mixed up into country. But the people that are still playing country music are now classified as Americana musicians or artists. And they are still making that music, and they're still touring in a bus and playing to decent-sized theaters, but they will never be the big hit Luke Combs, you know, all of those people, Taylor Swift. They will never be that. But they are making their music, and they just sit there, and there is an audience for that because they are filling theaters and they're doing tours. And Jason Isbell in the 400 unit, Margot Price. There's all these people that are just sitting there that are still playing the music, but now the business isn't about them anymore. You know, whereas that, you know, that music used to be the business. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, they would have been stars. But it's not about that anymore. And so I think that's where if AI comes in and starts working in that region, that's fine. Let them have that. But those people underneath here that are writing the songs that make you feel something, that make you cry, that make you laugh, that make you want to make love, those musicians will always be around. And, you know, we talk about, you know, playing in the bars and the clubs and the pubs, whatever. And you don't necessarily have to be the best musician if you play the songs that everybody wants to hear. And that's the problem with the average person, is that they don't care how good you are, so long as you play Wagon Wheel. You know, and you can play it poorly, but they can sing along with you, and they're okay with that. And so, you know, it's to me, it's like, it's that I find frustrating sometimes, because, you know, the average person going to a bar doesn't necessarily recognize what's good and what isn't good. And they're just like, hey, I love this song. These guys are great. And you're like, yeah, but he's singing off key. And but the song is so good. And you're like, oh, okay, I get it. You know, so you got to get over that as a musician, as an artist who writes and has a pride in their craft. You kind of have to go, whatever.
I'm totally on board there. To make it a couple of bucks, you have to pander and you have to play. There's a couple of songs I've promised I'd never play again in my life, just because I never even played Stevie Ray Vaughan, but every gig I'd go to, play Stevie Ray Vaughan. All right, I'm going to play really bad Stevie Ray Vaughan. They didn't care. As soon as they heard, oh yeah.
You're their favorite new band.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that you feel that way, that real music, real musicians are still there. There's not the mega record contracts and deals, but you can make a living doing that. You can, a satisfying living where you're not whipped into line by your management company or your record company. It's, you put out what you want, and if you have the wherewithal, you can self-publish and get your stuff out there. Rarely, you know, have to print anything anymore.
Tougher to do now, or not now, but it's always been tougher to tour in Canada because of the vastness and the separation. So, you know, to go on tour, you got to play a bunch of different venues. And there's only so many venues in Montreal, and then where do you go? Well, now we got to go to Toronto. Okay, well, you're on the road for 6 hours before you get to Toronto. And then where are you going? Well, now we're going to go out into the small Ontario towns. Okay, so now you're out in small Ontario towns. Now what do you do? Now Ontario's done. Okay, well, now where do I go? Well, I think Vancouver, you know, Halifax. Whereas in the States, you can put a tour together
in one state,
and it'll be mostly profitable, you know, and you don't have to drive far, and that's like why I think that still exists in the U.S. more so than in Canada. You don't see too many, like all of us when we were young, we get an old bus or a van and we'd pile into it and we'd take off for 6 weeks, and we didn't care. There were many venues to play. I'd go off into Ontario and play Huntsville and Owen Sound and London and, wherever else that going up even further up, towards Wawa, and the Nickel and all up there. And then we go out to Saint-Georges-de-Beauce and all through Quebec. And, there was many, many venues. Well, those venues aren't there anymore. So even that has shrunk. So you have less venues, further distance. So anybody in Canada who wants to tour, it's tough. And so there are some places that have, some companies, I guess you'd say, that have popped up, some services, which are like home routes and places like that, where they book you into people's homes.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And so what they'll do is they'll say, okay, I want to. You come, you contact them. You say, this is my music. What do you think? Yes, I think we'll be able to book you, and I would like to do a tour through Ontario and come back into Quebec and then go out here. And I would like that. And they're like, okay, not a problem. And then they contact their list, their database
right.
of people who have homes that can accommodate 20 or 30 people in an evening.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, would you host a show at your house? Yes. And the tickets are going to be how much? They're going to be $20. And then that person contacts all their friends and says,
wow.
Would you come to the house tonight? I've got Keith Ford playing. Who's that? Well, here's his contact information. You can download his stuff. And he'll be playing on Saturday night at 8 o'clock. And then you go and you play and you collect your ticket sales, and then you move on to the next place.
Wow.
And some of these places will even accommodate you if they can,
Yeah.
And so that has kind of sprouted up as a grassroots,
sort of a grassroots,
savior to some of the smaller artists.
Yeah.
But it's a grind.
Have you been to Newfoundland in your travels?
No, I haven't been to Newfoundland. I've been out to Halifax, out to Nova Scotia, and out to PI, but I haven't made it over to Newfoundland yet.
There was a music management company on the West Island during the late 70s and 80s. And that was like they signed on a new band. That would be their modus operandi. Is they'd ship you off to Newfoundland for 3 months, and
yes.
and I've heard so many horror stories of the dives that they had being put up in the bar's hotel upstairs, and everybody catches fleas or some other nasty affliction in those places. That said, though, I would love to. I haven't been to Newfoundland. No. I would love to go just to experience the music. Broad Street is supposed to be a special place to go.
But even then, like out in Newfoundland in the day, back in the 80s, when all the rock bands, the local rock bands were touring out there by bus, and there was a string of venues. There was the Strand, I think, was the name of one place that everybody I knew in Montreal that went out there played the Strand. Everybody went out there and played, and they all played the same places. And one of the things was that because you used to take the ferry over, and there was a stretch of highway as you come off the ferry, apparently, that it was so windy that so many of the bands got their trailers and buses blown over and lost their gear, and it was like how did you guys make it to the gig? Yeah, we did. Okay, good. But yeah, it's always been hard for musicians to tour, even when there were many venues. It wasn't easy. I mean, yeah.
I remember in COVID, Blue Rodeo gave a valiant effort. They recorded, I can't remember what the venue was. And about the tickets online, it was a broadcast, internet broadcast, and it was pretty cool. I mean, they really nailed the show. But it was funny. There's no audience reaction, and I'm sitting down here watching it on the big screen, and like, that was awesome. There's nobody clapping.
Yeah.
But true musicians are resilient, and they'll try anything.
Yeah. Oh, I tried doing some live stuff during COVID, just to see if we could make some money out of it. And I remember the learning curve of how do we monetize this? How do we actually get it out there professionally, and acquiring the gear and getting someone to help, and the headaches and the things not working. And I was like, I'm so glad that ended. I saw this as this is where we're at now, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't. And it was the hardest thing because I did one or two of them, and you would play, and there's no reaction, because you're playing to the ether world. Like well, the numbers say that everybody's signed on, but so it was very, very strange, and I did not like it.
No. Well, I mean, as a performer, you feed off the energy that the audience is giving you. That's what I meant with that Blue Rodeo one. It's like they had the energy up. I don't know what they were doing.
Oh man, it's tough because I really do believe that when I'm performing, I'm pushing my energy out into the audience. Like it's almost like a physical thing that I'm doing. And there's some songs that are just songs, and there's other songs that are true performances that I'm leaning out energy wise into the audience, and they push back, and it's that tension that where the energies meet that create that electricity in the room. And sometimes that energy doesn't come back, and it's tough. You finish the song and you feel like you've almost fallen, because you've just pushed everything out and nothing came back. And during COVID, when we were doing those online, there was no energy, and it was like, how do I prop myself up? Like
drugs and alcohol.
Yeah, it was like, it was like I had such a hard time with it. It was I was very scared. I was worried that this is where we were going to be at, because nobody knew when it was going to end. If it was
this is right, yeah.
And I really did not enjoy that. And I did one or two, and then I told the people I was working with, I said, I don't want to do this. I'm just going to wait. Just going to wait and see what happens. And luckily, we're out playing again. So
excellent. I'm going to ask you one more question before we wrap up. What's one thing you would tell young Keith Ford?
Wow. If it's about music, I would say that there's a couple of things. One, I would say you should have gained that confidence a little earlier on. You know what I mean? You should have just found that, if you could, a little earlier on, because you're going to be okay, knowing what I know now.
Knowing what you know.
But as far as a young Keith Ford, I just felt like on a personal level, apart from music or just being me, being Keith, I always felt like I was scattered, like I didn't always focus, and I think I would ask myself to focus a little bit more. I was just living life and wherever it took me.
Right.
And I think that is led to me taking a little longer to get where I wanted to be. Whereas I think if I'd have focused a little bit more when I was younger, and devoted more effort to one thing at a time, that even if it was just music or a job or school or whatever it was, but I just whatever came across me, I was game for it, and I just kept doing different things. And all of a sudden you're 65 and you're like, wait a second. But yeah, I mean, because you can't have regrets. You really can't.
No.
And everything happens for a reason. The life I led me to this, led me to these songs, this time in my life, who I am now, and
exactly.
And I'm happy.
And you're happy.
I'm happy with who I am and what's happened. It hasn't been easy, and part of that has been because of my lack of focus and my own stupid mistakes. But I think if I had not made those mistakes, then
that's exactly
I wouldn't be here.
Exactly right. Yeah. There's a lot of things they can look back on and go, if only I'd known. Yeah. But then you wouldn't be you today.
No.
And I'm glad you're happy with who you are, and I'm happy to meet you. It's been a pleasure sitting chatting with you.
And you.
And you're still out there performing. You were at Howz of Jazz last night in Laval. I've not been to that venue. I've been to a couple of downtown jazz places, it's you and Glenn.
So there's myself. We at the Howz of Jazz. We try to play with myself, Glenn on congas and percussion, and Jean-Christophe Germain, who's from Martinique in France, on violin.
Okay.
And it's a really interesting mix. So even when I'm doing my covers there, I do some of my own music there, of course, but when I'm playing the cover songs, I rip the songs apart. I don't ever try to do the songs like the album. I do them for me, in my style, in the key that I need to do them in.
Sure.
And then we kind of pull those parts in. And because he's not a fiddler, he's a violinist, and he's an island violinist. He brings this really cool flavor. We're using congas instead of drums, which adds another sonic flavor. And then there's me, who's got my own style. And it really works. That's why we've been there for 3 years. Because we're the only act that's not soul, pop, jazz oriented there. Mm-hmm. But everybody loves us, and because they're like, "What sound is this?" And so we play there quite often. And as a trio, Glenn and I, depending on budget and sometimes stage size, we'll play as a duo only in certain places, because sometimes it just doesn't accommodate 3 musicians. Mm-hmm. And I do the occasional solo show. I'm doing more of that now that I'm not working. I'm just playing music, so I need to fill the holes in, so I'll do more solo shows. And we do Club Meds. We get to go to Club Med in Charlevoix and Punta Cana, Turks and Caicos, Cancun. So
can't complain about that.
Yeah, so that's kind of like my, I might not have a company pension and a retirement fund, but I get to go to these places and play music, and music has afforded me the ability to do that. So that's my retirement is. A few weeks down south, come back, play here. We do a lot of corporate shows and private shows. I got a few private ones coming up, and Howz Yer Jazz at least twice a month, every month. So,
when's your next upcoming?
I think we're off this weekend coming up, which is rare. But it's nice to have a weekend off on sometimes. It's kind of nice. And then the following, I think the first, we're at the Howz Yer Jazz, and then which is a Saturday, and then the following Friday we're at the Howz Yer Jazz.
Oh, okay.
And then we've got some corporate shows, and I think we're playing in St. Anne de Bellevue on one of the outdoor stages at some point over the summer. Ole Tapas in St. Anne de Bellevue, and I think we're doing a pub show at Glenn and I. I don't think we're going to fit on the stage that they have in the corner of Cunningham's in St. Anne de Bellevue. I don't know if you've ever seen the stage, but it's about as big as this table. Yeah. And I think his congas may fit, but I won't. So I'll be having to squeeze in somehow there. But we don't do too many of those shows because of these. It doesn't accommodate us.
Right. Exactly.
And Glenn and I kind of. We drew a line in the sand when we started this. I said, I don't want. There was a lot of guys that undercut the other musicians who they would go out and play for $50 and a meal and a beer. Yeah. And I said to Glenn, I'm not doing it. Yeah. And I said, be willing to turn down shows because I think that we are worth more. Mm-hmm. And eventually, that's exactly what happened. It paid off. We get paid well. We play, nice shows. We enjoy it. It's worthwhile for us to go out, and especially as a professional musician who now, that's all I do is play music. It's important. If I'd have just accepted what they were going to give me, I wouldn't be surviving. So.
Oh yes.
Yes. Because honestly, when I was 13 years old and we played a high school dance at John Rainey, and we were a trio, and we got paid $400, and that's the maximum the local bar circuit will pay a band now.
Now, yes, exactly.
And that was over 50 years ago.
Yep.
So, we haven't been treated well as a group of wage earners.
That was one of the first things I remarked on. So I played music all through the 80s, packed it up, stored all my gear in my parents' basement, and went back to school and didn't look back on it. But when I did get back into it in the mid 2000s, and I was like, go to get booked somewhere, and you're a 3-piece band. Okay, well we'll give you $300, $100 a head. I'm like, That's what I got paid in 1985,
Yes.
man. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Probably got paid more.
Well, the thing we made more money back then because now the shows are one-nighters, whereas back in 1988 downtown, I would play Thursday, Friday, Saturday at Deja Vu, and then I would do Sunday to Wednesday at the Stanley Pub.
Yeah.
And there were 3-4 night gigs, and I was playing. I'd have one night off sometimes in a week, and I would just do that weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks on end. And so you could make more money because you could do front ends and you could do the weekends,
Yep.
and you were playing multiple nights, so you could ask for more money. And when we used to play the Peel Pub, it was a 7-night gig,
Yeah.
and they hired you on as an employee for the week. They even paid you 4% on the check, and they gave you a check at the end of the week, and it was good money, you know. It was like, and then you go up north and play in Randall and, you know, the Commons and wherever else, and there was money to be made. And now it's okay. We'll hire you for one night, and we'll give you $100, and you get a burger.
Yeah.
You have the limited musicians menu.
Yeah.
And you can have 2 beers each, and you're like, wait, and what? What? And I finish at what time?
Yeah, exactly.
So, and that's one of the nice things about Howz Yer Jazz is we do the early show. It's a double show.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just, you know, Michelle Sweeney came on after us last night. And
Okay.
Massive band, you know.
Yeah.
And we play 6 to 8. And I'm home in my sweatpants at 10 o'clock.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Towards the end of gigging, it was like, so Thursday night I'd be home watching TV with my wife, and it's 9:30, and I'm like nodding off.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh shit, we only start at 10 tomorrow.
Yeah.
night.
Yeah.
How am I gonna do it?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, Keith, we're gonna
Sure.
wrap it up. But thank you again so
Hey,
much for
my
coming all
pleasure.
the way out here.
Hey,
to
no worries. Yeah, enjoyed it.
bumfuck Egypt and St. Lazare.
I enjoyed it, man.
Yeah, and I don't know where this is all going. I'm looking for different formats. You asked about playing live music. Bringing a guitar and doing.
Yeah,
I'd like to get into that. We'll see how it all pans out. And but in any case, the conversations are great. Thank you for sharing your story and
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome.
what you're up to. And
Maybe you could start a writers round. Bring out a couple of us out here and each talk about our songs.
oh my God, I'd be the noob in the room. I'd be scared around
But
you guys.
like bring out some of the guys, you know, Sean, myself, anyone else that's writing
Yeah.
music, and we do one of these podcasts it's a writers round podcast, and
The
be
guy that
interesting.
Sean's playing with, Sean and Tom, I have known Tom since high school.
Okay.
We learned guitar together, and we were those kids, you know, just
Yeah.
figuring things out in the basement. So yeah, that would be fun. It's been a while since I've had a group of musicians in here,
Yeah.
and that would be fun. I
Yeah,
might hold
cool.
you to that.
Yeah. No
Whether
worries.
we record it or not, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your Sunday afternoon.
Appreciate you.
And we'll talk to you soon. Cheers. All right, that's a wrap. A huge thanks to Keith Ford for pulling up a stool and hanging out. If you like what you heard, go check him out. Support local music, go to a show, buy some merch, make some noise. And before we go, one last check-in. How's your stool? I'm Dave Randall. This is Howz Yer Stool, and we'll catch you next time. This has been a Bandit Monterey production.